First Contact and the Ancient Fault. The Helios Deep Space Station spun silently against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars, its sensors probing the darkness for any sign of the anomaly that had brought them here. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling purple nebula before her. 6 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the Galactic Alliance, and now here she was, part of the first joint human-alien expedition into uncharted space. Dr. Chen, they're requesting your presence in Chamber 3. The AI's voice interrupted her thoughts. Sarah adjusted her Navy uniform and headed toward the station's core, her footsteps echoing through the curved corridors. The artificial gravity felt slightly off today, but that was the least of their concerns. The chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Ambassador Vextal of the Arcturian species towered over the gathered crew, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into dancing patterns across the walls. Dr. Chen, they hummed, their translator converting the sound waves into English. We've detected energy signatures matching those from the predecessor archives. Sarah's heart raced. The predecessors, a civilization that had vanished 50,000 years ago, leaving behind technologies that the Alliance still couldn't fully comprehend. "Show me," she said, moving to the holographic display. The projection revealed a massive structure floating in the void, a derelict station easily 10 times the size of their own. Its architecture was unmistakable. Sweeping organic curves merged with geometric precision, the hallmark of predecessor engineering. But something was different about this one. It's still drawing power, Sarah noted, studying the readings. After all this time, Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, his weathered face grave. The Alliance Council is concerned. Every predecessor facility we found has been dormant. An active one could be dangerous, or it could be the discovery of the millennium. Sarah countered. She'd spent her career studying xenorchaeology, preparing humanity for its place among the stars. Now, barely months into their membership in the Alliance, they had a chance to prove themselves. The expedition team assembled within the hour. Sarah joined the mixed crew of humans and aliens in the shuttle bay, checking her environmental suit one final time. Besides Vextal, there was Crix, a meridian whose 6-limbed form moved with liquid grace, and Dr. Yara Patel, Sarah's longtime colleague and friend. As their shuttle approached the ancient station, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The structure's surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly, another predecessor trademark. But these patterns were different, almost like they were responding to their presence. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth for a facility this old. Environmental readings are stable, Crix announced, their mandibles clicking with excitement. Atmosphere is present and within acceptable parameters. They entered through an airlock that opened at their approach, its mechanisms as smooth as the day they were built. The interior was dark until they crossed the threshold. Then everything came alive. Lights flickered on in sequence, revealing corridors that stretched into the distance, their walls covered in the same shifting patterns they'd seen outside. "This isn't normal," Vextal stated, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Predecessor facilities don't just activate." Sarah moved forward, her hand running along the wall. The pattern seemed to follow her touch, creating ripples of light that spread out like waves on a pond. "It's beautiful," she whispered. They followed the activating lights deeper into the station, their sensors recording everything. The architecture seemed to be leading them somewhere, the patterns growing more complex and energetic as they proceeded. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a central chamber. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, and in the center, suspended in a column of light, was something that made everyone stop in their tracks. It was armor, or at least it appeared to be armor. Its surface was unlike any material Sarah had ever seen, shifting between states like liquid metal and solid crystal. Patterns similar to those on the walls flowed across its surface, but these were more ordered, more purposeful. "Incredible," Dr. Patel breathed. "The energy readings are off the scale." Vextal moved closer, their crystalline form resonating with the chamber's energy. "There are records of this," they said slowly. "Stories passed down through generations. The predecessors created guardians, beings of immense power who protected the galaxy. But they disappeared along with their creators." As if responding to Vextol's words, the armor's surface rippled, and text began appearing in the air around it, in every known language, including Earth Standard. "Approach and be judged," Sarah read aloud. "Only the worthy may claim the mantle of the Guardian." Vextol stepped forward confidently, their crystalline form glowing with anticipation. But as they neared the armor, the patterns on its surface became chaotic, discordant. A pulse of energy pushed them back, gentle but firm. One by one, the others tried. Crix was rejected. Dr. Patel was rejected. Even Captain Rodriguez was turned away. Each time, the armor's response seemed to grow more agitated, its surface roiling like a storm. Sarah stood back, observing, her mind racing. The patterns, the way they moved, they reminded her of something she'd seen in her research. Ancient Earth cave paintings that depicted the flow of life itself, the interconnected nature of all things. Without fully understanding why, she stepped forward. The armor's surface immediately calmed, the patterns flowing like peaceful streams. As she raised her hand toward it, the light in the chamber intensified, and the armor began to sing, a harmonic resonance that touched something deep within her soul. "That's impossible," Vextol whispered. "In all our records, it has never." The armor moved, flowing like quicksilver off its pedestal. It surrounded Sarah, not consuming her, but embracing her, its surface conforming to her form perfectly. Knowledge flooded her mind, memories, purposes, warnings. And in that moment, Sarah Chen understood why the predecessors had vanished, and why their guardian had waited all this time for humanity. Because something was coming, something that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. And now, it was beginning to wake up. The trials of many. News of the armor's choice spread through the Galactic Alliance like a shockwave. Within days, the ancient station's docking bays were filled with ships from every major species, each demanding their own chance to approach the artifact. Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck as another diplomatic vessel arrived, its hull bearing the intricate markings of the Solarian Collective. The armor hadn't left her since that first contact. It had become like a second skin, appearing and disappearing at will, its surface constantly shifting with patterns that seemed to reflect her thoughts. The knowledge it had shared remained just out of reach, fragments of memories and warnings that slipped away when she tried to focus on them. "The Collective's representatives are insistent," Captain Rodriguez said, joining her at the window. His uniform was crisp, but the dark circles under his eyes betrayed the strain of the past week. "They're claiming the armor is rightfully theirs, based on some ancient treaty with the predecessors." Sarah turned to face him, and the armor rippled in response to her irritation. "There's no treaty. The predecessors were gone long before the Solarians achieved spaceflight. They're lying." "I know," Rodriguez sighed, "but they're not the only ones making claims. The Meridian Confederation is threatening to withdraw from the Alliance if they're not given equal access to study the armor. The Arcturians are calling it a security risk. Even Earth's governments are divided on what to do." The central chamber had become a circus of sorts. Scientists, diplomats, and military leaders from across the galaxy took turns approaching the pedestal where the armor had rested, despite Sarah's insistence that it had already made its choice. Each attempt ended the same way, with failure and growing frustration. Dr. Yara Patel had set up a research station in the chamber, monitoring each interaction. "The energy patterns are fascinating," she told Sarah during one of their rare quiet moments. "Every rejection is different, tailored to the individual who approaches. It's not just saying no. It's explaining why, if we could only understand its language." The Solarian delegation was particularly dramatic in their attempt. Their leader, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate crystalline shell, approached the pedestal with absolute confidence. The rejection that followed shorted out their containment field, leaving them embarrassed and literally deflated. But it was the arrival of the Nexus Mind that changed everything. The artificial intelligence collective had remained neutral in galactic politics for centuries, observing but rarely intervening. Their mobile platform, a sleek assemblage of quantum processors and advanced robotics, drew everyone's attention as it entered the chamber. "We have analyzed the data," the Nexus Mind announced, its voice a perfect harmony of tones. "This artifact is not merely armor. It is a key." Sarah felt the armor grow warm against her skin. The patterns across its surface became more ordered, more urgent. "A key to what?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. The Nexus Mind sensors focused on her. "To survival. We have detected quantum disturbances throughout the galaxy, patterns that match theoretical models of space-time dissolution. The barrier between dimensions is weakening." The chamber erupted in chaos as translations reached each species present. Sarah closed her eyes, and suddenly the fragments of knowledge the armor had shared crystallized into a clear picture. She saw them, vast beings of impossible geometry, pressing against the walls of reality. The predecessors had fought them before, sealing them away, but the seals were failing. "That's why it chose humanity," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the noise. The armor brightened, confirming her words, "Not because we're stronger or smarter or more worthy, but because we're younger. Because we still believe in impossible things, because we haven't learned to accept limitations." The Nexus Mind's platform shifted, its components realigning. Correct. The predecessors' greatest flaw was their certainty. They believed they understood everything, could calculate every outcome. When faced with beings that defied their understanding, they could not adapt. They could not imagine new solutions. Ambassador Vextal stepped forward, their crystalline form dimmed with realization. "But humans thrive on uncertainty. They imagine the impossible as easily as we calculate orbital mechanics." Sarah felt the armor responding to her growing understanding, its surface flowing like quicksilver as new configurations revealed themselves. "The predecessors didn't vanish," she said. "They sacrificed themselves to buy us time, to keep those things contained until someone could come along who could think of a way to defeat them permanently." The knowledge flowing from the armor was clear now. She saw the locations of other facilities scattered throughout the galaxy, each containing pieces of the predecessor's last plan. The armor wasn't just a weapon or a defense. It was a bridge between human intuition and predecessor technology. "We need to move quickly," Sarah announced, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "Those seals are failing faster than anyone realized. We have weeks, maybe months, before the first breaches appear." The armor pulsed with approval as she continued. "I'm going to need help. Not to use the armor. That choice has been made. But to understand what the predecessors built, to figure out how to improve upon it, to imagine solutions they couldn't see." One by one, the representatives stepped forward. Even the Solarians, their pride set aside, offered their assistance. The Nexus Mind's platform expanded, projecting a galactic map marked with locations of suspected predecessor facilities. As Sarah looked at the assembled allies, she felt the weight of history settling onto her shoulders. Humanity had been thrust onto the galactic stage, and their first act would be either to save existence as they knew it, or to fail spectacularly trying. The armor hummed against her skin, its patterns forming words only she could read. "The trials are not over. They are only beginning." The nature of the threat. The first breach appeared in the Carina Nebula, a tear in space-time that defied every known law of physics. Sarah Chen watched the sensor feeds from the bridge of the Alliance flagship Stellar Dawn, the armor shifting restlessly against her skin. The tear was beautiful in a terrible way, a fractal pattern of impossible colors that hurt the mind to look at directly. "Security perimeter established," Captain Rodriguez announced from his temporary command position. The Alliance had appointed him as liaison to their combined fleet, recognizing the importance of having a human perspective in command. All civilian ships have been evacuated from the sector. The tear was growing. Every hour, it expanded by another 1,000 kilometers, and the beings on the other side were becoming clearer. The armor showed Sarah glimpses of them, entities that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could process, their very presence an offense to reality itself. The predecessors called them the Void Weavers, Sarah explained to the assembled command staff. The armor projected images above the tactical display, showing the ancient war that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. They don't want to conquer or destroy. They want to rewrite, to remake our universe according to their own laws of physics. Dr. Patel, who had been analyzing data from the breach, looked up from her station. The mathematical models suggest they're succeeding. Space-time is becoming unstable within 10 light-years of the breach. If we can't seal it, she left the implications unspoken. The armor had led them to 3 other predecessor facilities over the past weeks, each containing pieces of the ancient civilization's final plan. The Nexus mind had been crucial in decoding the technical aspects, while Sarah's human intuition, amplified by the armor, helped bridge the gaps in their understanding. The predecessors built a network. Sarah continued, the armor flowing into a new configuration that enhanced her connection to its knowledge. Each facility was designed to generate a specific frequency of quantum energy. Together, they could create a resonance pattern that would seal the breaches permanently. But they never activated it. Ambassador Vextal observed, their crystalline form darkened with concern. Why? The answer came to Sarah through the armor's memories. Because it wasn't finished. The network needed something they couldn't provide. An adaptive consciousness that could adjust the resonance in real time, responding to changes in the Void Weaver's attacks. They couldn't predict how the entities would react, so they needed someone who could improvise. A human trait. The Nexus Minds platform chimed in. Your species' neural patterns are uniquely suited to rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. A new alert drew everyone's attention back to the tactical display. The breach was pulsing, its edges becoming more defined. Something was coming through. All ships, battle stations, Rodriguez ordered. The fleet's weapons powered up, though everyone present knew conventional weapons would be useless against what they faced. The first Void Weaver emerged, a crystalline structure that seemed to fold through dimensions, its surface reflecting versions of reality that never were and never should be. Where it passed, space itself began to unravel, molecular bonds breaking down as new physical laws attempted to assert themselves. Sarah felt the armor responding to her rising adrenaline, its surface hardening into configurations she hadn't known were possible. Knowledge flooded her mind, not just the predecessors' memories, but new insights born from the combination of their technology and human consciousness. The network isn't complete, she realized aloud. But we don't need it to be. The predecessors tried to build a perfect solution, but perfection isn't what we need. We need adaptation, evolution. She turned to the Nexus mind. Can you link the fleet's quantum communications array into the predecessor facilities network? We need to create a feedback loop between their resonance pattern and our shit shields. The AI's platform reconfigured as it processed the request. The power requirements would be enormous. Success probability is below 12%. Those are better odds than humanity usually needs, Rodriguez said with a grim smile. What's the plan, Dr. Chen? Sarah's hands moved across the tactical display, the armor enhancing her movements as she outlined her idea. The Void Weavers exist in multiple dimensions, but they have to partially manifest in our reality to affect it. If we can match their dimensional frequency and then shift it, not trying to push them back, but redirecting their energy. Like a martial art, Dr. Paddle said, catching on. Using their own force against them. The armor pulsed with approval, its patterns aligning with Sarah's thoughts. She felt it connecting to the ship's systems, extending her awareness through the fleet's network. Through its enhanced senses, she could see the quantum mathematics underlying reality itself. and the distortions the Void Weavers were creating. More breaches were opening now, a dozen tiers in spacetime appearing throughout the sector. Through each one, impossible geometries began to emerge. The fleet split up, taking position around each breach, their shields linking together into a web of energy guided by the predecessor facility's ancient power. Sarah stood at the center of it all. Human consciousness merged with predecessor technology, improvising a solution to a problem that had defeated an entire civilization. The armor sang around her, its surface blazing with light as it channeled energies that hadn't been seen in 50,000 years. "All ships," she commanded, her voice carrying through the quantum network, "prepare to execute on my mark. We're about to teach these entities something the predecessors never could. The human art of rolling with the punches. The human solution." The void between stars had become a battlefield of impossible geometries. Sarah Chen stood at the heart of the Alliance fleet's defensive formation, the armor flowing around her like liquid starlight. Through its enhanced perception, she could see the quantum equations that governed reality twisting and breaking as the Void Weavers pressed their assault. "Shield harmonics at critical levels," the Nexus Mind reported. Its platform had integrated directly into the Stellar Dawn systems, coordinating the fleet's desperate defense. "3 more ships have lost containment. We cannot maintain this formation indefinitely." Sarah watched as another Void Weaver emerged, its crystalline structure bending light in ways that made her human mind scream in protest. But where others saw only chaos, she was beginning to recognize patterns. The armor's knowledge, combined with her human intuition, showed her something the predecessors had missed. "They're not random," she announced, her hands dancing across the tactical display. "Look at the breach points. They're creating a geometric pattern across spacetime. It's like they're weaving a net." Dr. Patel, who had remained aboard despite the danger, rushed to analyze the data. "She's right. The dimensional tiers aren't just entry points. They're nodes in a larger structure. They're trying to create a stable framework to support their version of physics." The realization hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. That's why the predecessors failed. They tried to fight the incursion directly, but you can't fight a change in the laws of physics. You have to work with them, redirect them. The armor pulsed with excitement, its patterns shifting to match her thoughts. Through their connection, Sarah felt it accessing deeper levels of its programming, revealing capabilities the predecessors had never imagined. "Captain Rodriguez," she called out, "I need every ship to reverse shield polarity on my mark." Dr. Patel, calculate the resonance frequency of the Void Weaver's framework. Ambassador Vextal, have your crystalline engineers ready to channel power through the predecessor network. "What are you planning?" Rodriguez asked, even as he relayed the orders. Sarah smiled, the expression reflected in the armor's rippling surface. "We're going to give them exactly what they want, just not the way they expected. Humans are good at finding third options." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Ships maneuvered into new positions, their crews trusting in a plan they couldn't fully understand. The Void Weavers, perhaps sensing something had changed, intensified their assault. Space itself groaned under the strain of competing physical laws. "Framework frequency identified," Dr. Patel announced. It's beautiful in a terrifying way, like a spider's web made of mathematical principles." "Crystalline engineers ready," Vextal added, "though I must note that what you're attempting has never been done." Sarah felt the armor responding to her rising adrenaline, its surface hardening into new configurations. Humanity's specialty is doing what's never been done. "Nexus Mind, begin the countdown." The EYE's platform hummed as it coordinated the fleet's systems, all ships in position, awaiting your command. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 2 civilizations, hopes resting on her shoulders. The armor showed her glimpses of the predecessors' last stand, their final realization that they had approached the problem wrong. But where they had only seen failure, she saw possibility. "The thing about weaving," she said, her voice carrying through the quantum network to every ship in the fleet, "is that once you understand the pattern, you can add your own threads to it. Execute. The fleet's shields reversed polarity in perfect synchronization. Instead of trying to block the Void Weaver's influence, they began to accept it, channeling the energy through the predecessor facility's ancient network. The crystalline engineers manipulated the quantum resonance, following patterns that mimicked the entity's own mathematical framework. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to change. Not breaking down, but transforming in a controlled way. The Void Weaver's framework, designed to support their version of physics, was being repurposed. "It's working," Dr. Paddle exclaimed, her instruments struggling to keep up with the changes. "The framework is accepting our modifications. We're not fighting their physics. We're teaching it to coexist with ours." Through the armor's enhanced senses, Sarah could see it happening. The impossible geometries of the Void Weavers were being woven into the fabric of normal spacetime, their energy redirected to strengthen rather than destroy. It was like teaching two opposing forces to dance instead of clash. The Void Weavers noticed too late what was happening. Their assault faltered as they found themselves caught in their own modified framework. Some tried to retreat, but the network of ships and predecessor facilities had created a closed loop. The very principles they had tried to use to unmake reality were being used to bind them into it. "Final phase," Sarah commanded, the armor glowing bright enough to illuminate the entire bridge. "Let's show them how humanity handles impossible situations." The armor channeled power through her, linking human consciousness, predecessor technology, and the modified framework of spacetime into something entirely new, something that neither civilization could have created alone. As the light from the armor reached its peak, Sarah Chen prepared to do what humans had always done best: adapt, improvise, and overcome. A new understanding. The universe held its breath as two forms of reality collided and merged. Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, the armor blazing around her like a newborn star. Through their combined power, she could see the Void Weavers not as monsters, but as beings trying to survive in a universe that wasn't made for them. Integration at 70%, the Nexus Mind reported, its platform's lights pulsing in harmony with the energy flowing through the fleet. Dimensional stability increasing across all sectors. The framework they had created was doing more than just containing the threat. It was transforming it. The Void Weaver's impossible geometries were being woven into the fabric of normal spacetime, creating regions where both forms of physics could coexist. Not a battle, but a synthesis. "Look at the energy patterns," Dr. Patel called out, her voice filled with wonder. "They're not fighting it anymore. They're adapting, just like we did." Sarah felt the armor's knowledge merging with her understanding. The predecessors had seen the Void Weavers as an invasion to be repelled, but humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to find common ground, to turn enemies into allies by changing the nature of the conflict itself. "They're trying to communicate," she announced, as new patterns emerged in the quantum data. The armor translated concepts that had no equivalent in human language. Their universe was dying, entropy reaching its final stages. They came here looking for survival, not conquest. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Can we help them without destroying ourselves in the process?" "We already are." Sarah gestured to the tactical display, where the modified framework was creating stable zones of overlap between the two forms of reality. The predecessors built weapons and barriers. We're building bridges. Through the fleet's quantum network, Sarah could feel the Void Weaver's response. Their assault had transformed into something else, a careful exploration of the new spaces being created. Where their touch had once unmade reality, it now reshaped it in controlled, purposeful ways. The predecessor facilities, Ambassador Vextal observed, their crystalline form resonating with the energies flowing through space. They're not just power sources anymore. They're becoming anchors for a new kind of spacetime. Sarah nodded, the armor flowing like quicksilver as it helped her channel and direct the ongoing transformation. The predecessors created this technology to protect their version of reality. But humanity's gift isn't protecting things as they are. It's imagining what they could become. Across the sector, the tiers in space-time were changing. Instead of ragged wombs in reality, they were becoming structured gateways, interfaces between two forms of physics that had once been incompatible. The Void Weavers moved through these spaces with growing confidence, their impossible forms no longer causing destruction where they passed. Framework integration complete, the Nexus Mind announced. Dimensional stability has achieved equilibrium. The immediate threat has been neutralized. But Sarah knew this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Through the armor's enhanced perception, she could see possibilities stretching out before them. The Void Weaver's understanding of higher dimensions, combined with human creativity and predecessor technology, could open doors that neither civilization had dreamed possible. Send a message to Alliance Command, she instructed Rodriguez. Tell them we've made first contact. Again. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Scientists from every Alliance species worked alongside the Void Weavers, learning to communicate across the barriers of radically different physics. The predecessor facilities, once monuments to an ancient war, were repurposed as research centers studying the intersection of two universes. The armor remained with Sarah, but its purpose had changed. No longer a weapon against dimensional invaders, it had become a tool for understanding and cooperation. Its surface still shifted with complex patterns, but now they were a blend of human intuition, predecessor precision, and the mathematical poetry of the Void Weaver's native physics. 1 month after the crisis, Sarah stood in the observation deck of the Helios Deep Space Station, watching ships from both realities dock and depart. Dr. Patel joined her, carrying a tablet filled with data from their latest experiments. The Alliance Council is still trying to process everything that's happened, Yara said with a smile. Some of them are calling it the greatest breakthrough in galactic history. Others are terrified of the changes it will bring. Change is what humans do best, Sarah replied, feeling the armor hum in agreement. The predecessors sought perfection. The Void Weavers sought survival. But humanity, we seek possibility. Together, they watched as a Void Weaver ship emerged from one of the new gateways, its impossible geometry now a thing of beauty rather than terror. The ship's crew had been working with Alliance scientists to develop new technologies that combined the best aspects of both realities. The armor's surface rippled, showing Sarah a vision of what might come. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions, ships that could navigate the spaces between realities, and discoveries that would reshape their understanding of existence itself. Not because humanity was stronger or smarter than other species, but because they had never stopped believing in the possibility of finding another way. You know, Sarah said, watching the patterns of two universes dance together in the space before her. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to fight it or fix it. Sometimes you just have to imagine a universe where it isn't a problem at all. The armor pulsed once, its patterns forming words that spoke of hope, of change, and of the endless adaptability of the human spirit. In the space between realities, a new chapter in the story of existence was beginning. And humanity, as always, was ready to improvise.